Hello everyone, my name is Charles Ludlow, and in today's video we're going to be covering how to rename a domain. You'll find a link to this document in the description, but it basically just gives you some extra information and guidance on how to perform this operation. With that out of the way, the first thing we need to talk about is, do you really need to perform this operation? In this example, if we look at our forward lookup zone, we'll see that our domain was built out as CNTDEMOS.com. In this example, this is a problem because we need our users internally to be able to access this website, which doesn't work. And the reason that it doesn't work is because when we try to connect to that domain, DNS returns this address, but the website isn't hosted by the domain controller. Instead, it's hosted by a public server. So you can see this one as an outside computer correctly connects to the right server. So that's the reason we're going to. There may be other reasons. You'll have to review those internally and make a decision whether this is necessary. This is a somewhat risky procedure to do, especially in a production environment, and backups are critical. With that out of the way, let's get started. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is run Windows Update. Now, I've already taken care of that, but you'll just want to make sure that when you go under Windows Update on all of your servers, especially your domain controllers, that you're fully up to date. The other thing that you're going to want to do is I recommend installing Windows Management Framework 5.1. While not strictly necessary, it does help to manage these servers remotely. You can verify it's installed just by checking to see if your copyright date is 2016 or newer. It's only applicable to server 2012, 2012 R2, 2008, and 2008 R2. Let's continue now. You're going to want to make sure that you reboot your servers one final time before you begin. Then you're going to want to take a backup. As you can see, since it's a VM, I just made a copy of my virtual disk file. All right. The next thing you're going to want to do is optionally run dcdiag and repadmin. Since this is a brand new domain controller and domain, I don't need to do that, but you may want to just to make sure everything's working correctly first. The next thing you're going to want to do is check and confirm that Exchange Server 2007 or newer has never been present and isn't currently present in your domain. If it is, this operation is not supported and will not succeed. If you had or have Exchange Server 2003 in your environment, you can proceed with this operation, but you'll be unable to change the NetBIOS name. Lastly, you'll also want to check that you have no servers or clients that are running older operating systems beyond Server 2003 or Windows XP. Also, you're going to want to check your forest functionality level. We can do that here from this helpful little domains and trusts, and you can see that our domain is running in the Server 2012 R2 functionality level, and our forest is also running in the Server 2012 R2 functionality level. If you are operating below Server 2003, for example, Server 2000, this operation will not succeed. You'll need to raise the functionality level and wait for that to replicate. You'll also need to decommission any servers that are domain controllers that are running 2000 or older. Final step, you're going to want to shut down all of your client PCs and any servers that are not critical to you performing this operation. So if this Hyper-V server that's being demonstrated was running was within that network, then we would be able to keep it running, but we wouldn't want to keep any other servers running. So only Hyper-V servers that are running domain controllers and only domain controllers themselves as VMs should be running at this point. And we can just verify that. Once that's been completed, what we're going to do is, actually we're going to double check that right now here. Let's just make sure. I did not mean to close that. I don't know why I forgot to keep that open. Okay, so as you can see, our two clients are shut down. Obviously, in the real world, you'd either want to use external tools or manually verify that your clients were shut down. You do not want them running during this operation. Technically, they could be, but by keeping them offline, if this operation fails, you can simply roll back your domain controller to a clean image and boot everybody back up, and none will be the wiser. Then you can take time to plan and retry it at a later point in time. Because once you break that security trust relationship with the client, it is very difficult to fix that and often results in the loss of profiles and data. All right, with that out of the way, in my document, I recommended that you allocated an 8-hour day for this first preparation phase. Obviously, I was able to get through it in about 6 minutes here. Um, but, had I had to run Windows updates or whatever else, it would have taken hours to prepare for this point. Now that we have reached this point, I have to take a moment and say that this is your last warning. This is not recommended and not advised in production. It's extremely risky, and if Active Directory breaks, you can lose settings, user profiles, and some or all of your data. Okay? Nothing should go wrong, but I'm not liable if anything does go wrong. Okay? If you do not feel comfortable doing this, either hire us or another IT consulting firm to help you through this process. Okay? It can be done, but it is, like I said, extremely risky. With that out of the way, you'll want to double check one last time that the only thing running is your domain controllers, potentially any Hyper-V servers that have DCs as VMs, and you'll need your router running. All right, um, let's get started. All right, so first thing we're going to want to make sure is we're logged in with an account with appropriate permissions. I'm using the built-in administrator account. I highly recommend doing it this way, but if not, you can use an account that has the appropriate groups. I have specified those in my document. All right. First thing we're going to do is we are going to make sure that we're on the C drive. We're going to go to the root and we're going to make the directory working. You could call this whatever you want. It's just important that you stay in this directory during this first part. All right, with that out of the way, we need to create our new DNS zone. This is going to be the first part to make this work. So we're going to specify the add DNS primary zone command. And then we're going to do name. This is going to be the name of the new domain. So in my case, it's going to be corp.cntdemos, if I can spell, .com, right? Then for the replication scope, we're going to say that it's going to be domain. Okay. And then we're going to specify pass through. Whoopsies, I cannot type. Pass through. There you go. And we'll hit enter. And it would really help if I used the correct commands. That error can be totally ignored. That's just because I failed to specify name correctly. Perfect. So now we can see that new zone has been created. This can be done in the GUI, but I highly recommend sticking to PowerShell. That way you can make sure that your commands are done correctly. All right. If you have multiple domain controllers, I would recommend letting this sit for a good little while, making sure that everything replicates. But since we only have the one DC, and I know it's on a really fast hardware computer, it's on a really fast machine, we don't need to worry about that. All right, here comes the fun part. We're going to need to generate the domain list.xml file, okay? We're going to do so by running, whoopsies, we're going to do so by running random/list. It's going to generate that file. We can access it with Notepad. Okay, we are going to update the following portions here. These portions here, we're going to add our new domain. In this case, we're just setting up the corp domain. Then here, we're going to specify our new NetBIOS name. In my case, I'm going to call mine CNTCORP. You can call yours whatever you like. All right, we will save this file and we will close it. It's very important that you do not move this file and you do not rename this file. Next, we'll run rendom/showForest. See, what this is going to do is it's just going to validate that file and show us our changes, and we can see that everything looks good. Our flat name, also known as our NetBIOS name. The NetBIOS name, by the way, is this portion here. So you can see right now ours is CNTDEMOS. All right, so everything looks good there. So now we're going to run rendom/upload. Okay, the operation completed successfully. At this point, Active Directory forest configuration is no longer possible since it's now in a locked state. Okay, we'll run rendom/prepare. This is just going to check all domain controllers in the forest and make sure that they're available and ready to go. Since we have one server, everything's good. At this point, we can do rendom/execute. And again, it'll wait for the domain controllers to acknowledge this new change. All right. At this point, you do not want to touch your servers. This will automatically cause them to reboot. This process usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes, but in my test lab, we're dealing with Hyper-V servers with lots of cores, fast processors, lots of fast RAM on NVMe storage. So in real world, this may take 5 or 10 minutes for this process to complete. You will not want to touch your domain controllers during this time. While we're waiting for this process to complete, since we have changed our DNS name now, I would highly advise going to your router. In this case, I'm using pfSense to simulate a router, but you might have something else. And we're going to update our domain name that's going to be handed out as part of the DHCP packet. Okay, so we'll just hit save on that. The other thing I'm going to do is go ahead and clear my DNS leases. That way we make sure that the computers don't accidentally get a incorrect information there. Obviously your router and Hyper-V servers should be, most of your server infrastructure should be static, but for your clients, we're just going to want to make sure they get the right information now and in the future. I do apologize. I'm not feeling the best today, so I do apologize if I have to mute the mic. We're almost there here. We just got to wait for this DC to finish this operation. Excuse me, sorry. So it has finished the operation. Real quick note, just has to do with the lab. We're accessing servers in different time zones here, and so the time is correct on these machines. It's just on this machine, it's in Mountain Time, and on this machines that we're dealing with here, they are located in Central Time. And as you can see, our sign into is now CNTCORP. Now, just to be safe, I recommend signing in like this. This way, we just make sure we get signed into the right domain and we don't cause it any errors or confusion. Okay. Now, we're going to run PowerShell as an administrator once again. Okay, and we're going to open system properties. We can do that by running the sysdm.cpl command, and we will see that our domain has successfully changed to corp.cntdemos.com. It's okay that our full computer name hasn't. We will fix that in a minute. All right, so now we need to fix group policy. And the way we're going to do that is by running the gp fixup command /old DNS colon our old name, which was CNTDEMOS.com, and then also specifying the new DNS switch corp.cntdemos.com. It's very important you get your spellings correct here, otherwise you may see errors, but as you can see, GP Fixup executed with success. Perfect. All right, so now with that out of the way, we need to update the NetBIOS name if you've done so in that previous file. We're going to fix that with GP Fixup again, /old NB colon, and ours was CNTDEMOS, and /new NB CNTCORP. And it executed successfully. Perfect. Now, for domain controllers, we are going to have to perform a manual rename operation. So to do that, we're going to run the netdom computer name, and then we're going to specify the old name of the computer. So this is cnt-dc1.cntdemos.com. Our new computer name is going to be specified with the add flag, or the add switch, cnt-dc1.corp.cntdemos.com. And as you can see, the command completed successfully. Perfect. So now we've got to make that the primary name. So we can rerun that previous command, but we're going to change it from the add switch to the make primary switch. And go ahead and execute that again. And it says it successfully made it, that name. It goes on to specify some information, and it's asking us to reboot. We can do so with the shutdown /f/r/t and just put in a 0 or more zeros. It's fine. And it will reboot. Now, once again, we'll wait for this machine to come back up. And it'll take it a sec here, but it should boot up pretty quick. There it is. And we'll just wait till we get to our gray login screen. I'm using Server 2012 R2 just because it's what I had handy. But you can do, this should be perfectly fine with 2003 and newer. Like I said before, if you're not sure, I'd highly recommend contacting our firm or another consulting firm. Just because again, this is a very risky thing to do in production. All right, so let's log into our DC, and you can see now we are CNTCORP. We should be perfectly fine to type in administrator at this point and our super secure password, and it should just log us on. Awesome. Okay, so now at this point, what we can do is we can go into Active Directory users and computers. And as you can see, we are CNTDC01 corp.cntdemos.com, and it has migrated all of our stuff over. Now, what we want to do, okay, if your Active Directory domain controller or domain controllers are running on top of domain joined Hyper-V machines, that's not shown in this demo, but if they were, you would want to go ahead and reboot the Hyper-V servers 3 times. Okay, you probably could do it with 1 or 2, but just be safe and do it 3 times. Like I said, you don't want to get into a situation where you lose that security trust relationship. After that's completed, okay, you now need to go to your client computers and turn them on. Okay, so we're going to turn them on. We're going to wait for them to boot up. In this example, I have a Windows 10 Enterprise and a Windows 11 Enterprise machine, just to show, but you should be fine with anything running XP and newer. You should be perfectly fine. Now you're going to notice that they did indeed detect that they're on CNTCORP. They no longer show CNTDEMOS. But just to be safe, we're going to reboot them 3 times just to be absolutely certain everything has successfully migrated. Believe me, it's better to go about it this way than to get that trust relationship error, because boy oh boy, you're in for a world of hurt if you're dealing with that error. Okay, so they booted up. This will be reboot number 2. And again, we'll just keep an eye on them. There's plenty of tools how to do this if you're dealing with client workstations. That's not really in the scope of this video. Maybe I'll make a video on how I would do this if I was dealing in a production environment. I wouldn't go around. I would definitely want somebody on site, but I wouldn't go around and do this manually. I'm just demonstrating it here just to show what you would do if you just had a couple computers. And now we'll do the final reboot. All right. And that one's up. Perfect. Let's go ahead and try to log into those. So on this one, I'll log in with CNT user and a super secure password. And on this one, I'll log in with CNT user 2 and another super secure password. And while it may take a few seconds, you can see that we're logged in. Our preferences have been retained for quick access. We can access the shared drive. Yeah, I mean, everything's the way it should. Here's our test file. You can see it's working. Now, this part won't work just yet because we haven't done cleanup, so you can see that the website still doesn't respond. We'll get to that in a minute, but we can see that the user's profile is intact. We could also run sysdm.cpl, and since I'm not actually an administrator on this machine, or since my test user in this scenario is not actually an administrator, we are going to have to UAC, but you can see on its own, it has correctly found the right domain. Everything's good. We were even able to authenticate as an admin. The same is true over here. I set some preferences over here in File Explorer to show these 3 folders. You know, as you can see, guys, everything is working just exactly as we would expect it to. Our slightly different Chrome installation, everything's good. All right, so these are just a couple of test machines. You shouldn't need to log into all of them. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and sign out of our 2 test computers here. Windows 11. Where'd they move it? Here it is. Here's sign out. All right. So now that we verified that everything's good, we can go back into PowerShell and run our final 2 commands. We can run rendom/clean. And to unlock our forest and end this operation, we can run rendom/end. All right. We're going to go ahead and reboot our domain controllers. What? Whoopsies. Where'd it go? One last time. And this is just going to apply to your DCs. Your client computers are already good to go. And hopefully this will come up here in a sec. And it's taking a little second here to load up. Almost there, I hope. There it is. We're on the gray screen. We can go ahead and remote back onto it. And now we can run one more double check here. Just make sure that everything looks okay. As you can see, everything's fine. You can even see our computers retained the correct location. They now have their updated DNS name. Go to properties here. We've got our new domain name. Perfect. Let's go ahead and open up DNS and see how things are going over there. As you can see, it has automatically migrated the correct files over. These are leftover records. What we can do at this point, you do not want to do this. Well, you want to make sure all your computers were done earlier, like I said, because if you don't, you'll have bad problems later. But at this point, we should be able to successfully delete this out. Yes, everything's fine. We know everything's fine. And look at that. Now, for the final test, we can now access the correct site. And just like that, we have successfully completed a domain rename. And just to show that nothing was affected by that deletion, we're going to go ahead and log back on one more time as those users. Again, you don't have to do this for every user. I just wanted to show 2 users on 2 different versions of Windows just to show that this does indeed work and things are handled well. All right, so now we can still get to our test file, CNT users 2 test file. We can access Chrome. And we should now be able to access CNTDEMOS.com and www.cntdemos.com. We'll just confirm again, CNT users test file. And if we go to Google Chrome, CNTDEMOS.com and www.cntdemos.com responds. Like I said earlier, this helpful document will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.